Welcome to the Invite Health podcast, where our degreed healthcare professionals are excited to offer you the most important health and wellness information you need to make informed choices about your health. You can learn more about the products discussed in each of these episodes and all that Invite Health has to offer at www.invitehealth.com/podcast. First-time customers can use promo code podcast at checkout for an additional 15% off your first purchase. Let's get started.
Hi, Jerry Hickey here. Welcome to part 2 of our episode, Choline, the brain-boosting nutrient 90% of us lack. We're just not getting it in our diet. And I started the first part of this episode, this broadcast, and that it's rather amazing that this nutrient, which is needed for your memory to function, for your muscles to function, for your nerves to function, for learning, for problem solving, for paying attention, most of us are lacking. A recent review by the National Institutes of Health, 90% of all American adults and children fail to consume enough choline. So 10% of us get enough choline. So in any event, today we'll review very quickly what choline is. In the first part of this episode, I discussed how much you need and food sources, etc. And I said krill is a dependable source. It's a very good source of choline because it gives it in a favored form, which is phosphatidylcholine, which is absorbed very well into the liver and into your brain and into your nerves and heart and everything. And it's a very healthy thing because all of our cells require choline. All of our cells require phosphatidylcholine. So krill gives you phosphatidylcholine. So even though you can get choline from the diet, a lot of the foods that contain choline, people are not consuming, like organ meats, like liver, egg yolks, etc. So if you do 2 krill a day, it's a high quality krill, you're getting phosphatidylcholine, the preferred form of choline. So welcome to my episode, Choline, the brain boosting nutrient 90% of us are lacking. My name is Jerry Hickey. I'm a nutritional pharmacist. By the way, it's always an honor and a privilege to be speaking with you. You can find all of the Invite podcast episodes wherever you listen to podcasts for free, or just go to invitehealth.com/podcast. Please subscribe and leave a review. That's very helpful for us so we know where we're going with that. Also, you can find Invite on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter at Invite Health. All of the information on this episode is linked at the description and the website or wherever you're listening. So let's get going. Choline is an essential, incredibly important nutrient. It's nominally connected with B vitamins. If you lack choline, your brain doesn't work well. If you lack choline, your liver is going to be really a problem. You're really going to have liver problems, and that's what we're going to focus on in this episode. But first, let's just discuss quickly choline and the brain. I described this study in part 1 of the episode, but a quick review. Not everybody listens to both episodes, which is a shame for me. It's part of the Kuopio, Finland, ischemic heart disease risk factor study. So it's a large study. It's an ongoing study. And they're looking at almost 2,500 men between the age of 42 to 60 that were enrolled in the study starting in 1984. And these men were brain healthy. They didn't have strokes. They didn't have dementia. Now, 4 years after they were enrolled in the study, they were given a battery of 5 cognitive tests. This was administered to a portion of them, a slice of them, almost 500 of them. And men with higher choline intake from their food, or maybe supplements, they had superior linguistic abilities. They're not reaching for words, and better memory. So they followed these men for approximately 22 years, and sadly, after 22 years of the initiation of the study, 337 of the initial men were diagnosed with different dementias. That's about 14%. And what they found, increased intake of choline, especially as phosphatidylcholine, reduced the risk of dementia by 28%. Now, if you add that to fish oil, it's just a sidebar here. Fish oils also reduce the risk of dementia. So if you're adding the phosphatidylcholine and fish oils, which you get in krill, that's really important because they found this even in people who had a problem with the ApoE4 variant of the cholesterol carrying gene, of the fatty carrying gene. So why is phosphatidylcholine important in the brain? Well, first of all, it's very important in the housing of the brain, the cellular membrane. All cells have a large content of phosphatidylcholine, whether they're muscle cells or heart cells or any kind of cell. But this is really important in the brain because you need the right fats in the brain. And phosphatidylcholine is a fatty type substance that does really wonderful things in your brain. It makes it work properly. It protects it from inflammation. It protects it from damage. It helps protect you from memory loss. Phosphatidylcholine creates acetylcholine. Phosphatidylcholine creates acetylcholine. And you need acetylcholine for memory. In fact, one of the reasons why we get a little sketchy with our memory, we get that kind of a little bit of absent-mindedness when we grow older, is because our acetylcholine levels normally drop. In fact, in people with dementia, there's practically no acetylcholine, and they use drugs to try to bring acetylcholine back, and these people will do better temporarily. So the acetylcholine is needed for your memory. It's needed to learn something new. You know, you can have a memory of things that happened in the past and not be able to retain something new, so it helps you learn. Your mood, it stabilizes your mood. It's needed for problem solving, acetylcholine. Creating new memory cells. When you go to sleep at night, you go to deep sleep, you create new memory cells. You need phosphatidylcholine. You need acetylcholine, I should say, as part of that, and phosphatidylcholine is a precursor to acetylcholine. You need it for proper nerve function. You need it for the coating of the nerves so they function, a myelin sheath that allows the nerves to transfer information very quickly into your brain. It creates sphingomyelin, which is important for your brain cells. It creates plasmalogens. Now, I didn't even discuss that probably in the first part of this episode. Plasmalogens are kind of like a bulletproof vest for your nerve cells in your brain, your thinking cells, all your cells in your brain. As we grow older and we have a lower level of antioxidants, a lower level of the pool of antioxidants in our brain, this naturally occurs, plasmalogens will step in and be an alternate form of protection for our brain cells. So in krill, you get the phosphatidylcholine, the phosphatidylinositol, the phosphatidylethanolamine, the phosphatidylserine, and the fish oils, all needed to create plasmalogens. It's a great source for creating plasmalogens, which protects the brain of older people. Now, you need the phosphatidylcholine to create acetylcholine. And this increases the viability of what we call alpha-7 nicotinic acetylcholine receptor sites in your brain. Alpha-7 nicotinic acetylcholine receptor sites in your brain increase in number and are more impervious to damage when you have enough phosphatidylcholine. Because these are receptor sites you need for all those brain functions, the executive function, all those cognitive functions, including attention span, working memory, executive function. And when you wake these cells, these receptor sites up, when you activate these receptor sites, you actually support cognitive function. You actually improve cognitive function. It's a very important supplement for everybody at any stage, but especially older people. Now, there's a number of things that happen when you lack choline. You have DNA damage, which of course, if it goes in the wrong direction, can lead to cancer. You have poor lymphocyte function. Your white blood cells that fight disease and infection and cancer, they're not working well. You have poor brain function. You have an increased risk of memory loss. But you also definitely have a problem with your liver. You definitely can have a problem with your liver, which can lead to different things, including primary liver cancer, cancer that pops up in your liver. So we're really going to focus on choline in the liver now. First, let me tell you why lacking choline leads to liver disease. When you swallow choline from any source, whether it's a supplement, krill oil, which is my favorite source, foods, because swallowing krill is to me, it assures you're going to get some choline in the preferred form, which is phosphatidylcholine. When you swallow any source of choline, one of the first places it builds up is in your liver. And it does a lot of things in your liver, a lot of good things. First of all, it's a methylator. A methyl group is a carbon with 3 hydrogens, a very dominant group in biochemistry. And your genes have to be properly methylated. That's why certain vitamins are so essential, like folate, the active form of folate, methyl tetrahydrofolate, or B12, because they properly will methylate your genes, and when you do this, you protect your genes. For instance, things that improperly methylate your genes would be alcohol, certain viruses, radiation, cigarette smoke, any smoke. And these improper methylations damage the genes and open up possibilities of mutation, which of course can start the cancer process. If you're unlucky, it'll lead to the cancer process. So one thing choline does everywhere in the body is it's a source of methylation. It supplies that methyl group to protect your genes. But it also is converted, besides acetylcholine, which is so important for your nerves and your muscles and your brain, choline creates something called betaine. Betaine is an incredibly important nutrient in the human body. They're not doing enough research in it, but time will tell you. And one of the things that betaine does, it assures proper function of the kidneys, proper glomerular filtration rate, the ability of kidneys to get rid of toxins and byproducts of metabolism. Otherwise, these things build up and they become toxic to the brain and the pancreas, etc. Now, a second thing, choline is good for your genes. Choline is a methyl donor that supplies that carbon-hydrogen combination. And this makes the genes in your liver work properly. It's important for a lot of genes in your liver. But also, the phosphatidylcholine that you would find in krill, you would find in beans, you would find a little bit in egg yolks, that makes 40 to 50% of the membrane of each of our cells, the housing of each cell. It's converted into bile to help you dissolve and absorb fats. But choline also prevents the accumulation of fat in our liver, and that's exactly where we're going with this. When you swallow choline, one of the places it starts to accumulate in right away is the liver. And that's really important because it helps create very low density lipoprotein. You've heard of LDL, bad cholesterol. You've heard of HDL, purportedly good cholesterol, but there's more to that story. I've done a podcast episode on that, but it's a very interesting thing. HDL and the correct chemical structure is incredibly good for protecting you from heart disease. That's a great anti-inflammatory. But phosphatidylcholine goes into the liver, and it helps create VLDL, very low density lipoprotein. So what does that do? It carries triglycerides out of the liver. VLDL, which is made from phosphatidylcholine, that's one of the key ingredients, carries a fat called triglycerides out of your liver. Now, triglycerides could be quite dangerous if they build up in the body. High triglycerides lead to fatty liver, pancreatitis, strokes, heart disease. They infiltrate possibly your lungs, your kidneys, but definitely your heart, your liver, so they're dangerous. See, normally when you eat food, a lot of the sugar, etc., is converted to triglycerides, and then you use that when you're doing something physical. So if you're eating like a lumberjack and you are working like a lumberjack, that's okay. You'll burn the triglycerides with physical activity. But a lot of us eat like a lumberjack, and then we sit behind our computer, like I'm doing right now, or we're playing a video game, or whatever we're doing. We're not active. So the triglycerides are too high. You'll see this frequently in diabetics and pre-diabetics. You'll see it in people who are overweight. You'll see it in people who are obese. You'll see it in people who eat a lot of sugar, people who drink a lot of alcohol, people who eat a lot of fats, certain kinds of fats. So the triglycerides build up when you eat food, and the VLDL carries them away from the liver. When you lack choline, there's no way to get them out of the liver, and they build up in the liver. And this is highly toxic. It leads to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. When I was in pharmacy school back in the 1970s, we had this brilliant lecturer, pharmacologist, Dr. David Lynch, and he would tell us about alcohol and what it does to the liver and how so many alcoholics had fatty liver disease. And it was a major cause of death in alcoholics. But we never spoke about non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is common now. It's more common than disease of the liver caused by alcohol, apparently, because all you have to do is be really overweight and not get choline, and you develop non-alcoholic fatty liver disease of the liver because the fat's building up. And this can lead to NASH, non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. You've heard of hepatitis. Most people think that hepatitis only occurs when you have a virus, but that's not true. Hepatitis means inflammation of the liver. So anything that inflames the liver is a form of hepatitis. Non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, meaning you're not drinking alcohol, it's the fats in your food that are building up in your liver and causing liver disease. Or it's the sugar in your food that's creating these fats that's causing the liver disease. That's probably the more common cause. But it leads to hepatocarcinoma, primary liver cancer. You don't need any other cancer to get into the liver. Just having fat build up in the liver can lead to liver cancer. And cirrhosis, liver failure, where, you're in trouble. Let me tell you about a Zucker rat study that I read about 20 years ago. It was from Italy. Zucker rats are genetically modified rats, and they're incredibly fat. I mean, they're so fat. They're unbelievable. They have fat in places where you'd never think you could have fat, like between their ears and like between their toes. I mean, they're incredibly fat. So they commonly study Zucker rats for things like diabetes and heart disease, etc. So they did a study in Italy. They saw the Zucker rats, by and large, had liver disease. They had fatty infiltration of the liver. They had fatty liver. They gave them fish oils. And the fish oils did lower the fatty liver a little bit. Fish oils do help with fatty liver. So does grapeseed extract a little bit. So does exercise a little bit. So does a good diet a little bit. But when they gave them choline, it was just flushing the fat out of their liver. And what was the source of choline? It was the phosphatidylcholine in krill oil. So fish oils did get some of the fat out of the liver and some of the fat out of the heart too, because these same fats build up in the heart like they do in the liver. So that should tell you something. But when they gave them the krill, it was really doing a job on getting the fat out of their liver. Here's some stats on non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. This is the National Institutes of Health. It's present in up to 65% of people who are overweight. So just having a big belly can lead to fatty liver. And 90% of people who are, morbidly obese. What does morbidly obese mean? They have so much fat on their body that it's causing other diseases. It's causing other conditions. So non-alcoholic fatty liver disease can be benign, like maybe you're just fatigued or have aches and pains, etc., all these weird, vague symptoms. But it can also lead to the hepatitis, steatohepatitis, fatty hepatitis, fibrosis. This is common. Like there's a number of studies in postmenopausal women who are overweight where they saw that they had fibrosis of the liver. What does that mean? When you get the fat building up in your liver, it's killing the liver cells, and scar tissue is coming in and replacing the healthy liver cells and stiffening the liver. In other words, it's leading to liver failure, cirrhosis. And also, like I said, primary liver cancer. You don't need anything else to cause liver cancer. Simply having all that fat and lacking choline, having all that fat in your liver and lacking choline is a clear source of liver cancer. So phosphatidylcholine especially clears the fat out of your liver. Even better than choline, so that's why I like krill. So here's a study. It's over 56,000 Chinese adults between the age of 40 to 75, and having more, this is on the National Institute of Health website, having more phosphatidylcholine or even choline really reduced the risk of developing non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. It reduced the risk 25 to 32%. Now, don't forget, a lot of these people can have risk factors for fatty liver. They could be diabetic, they could be overweight. So here's a study of 664 people. These are postmenopausal women, and they have non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. So they have more advanced fatty liver disease where it's causing inflammation of the liver. steatohepatitis. The lower the choline intake, the worse the fibrosis, the worse the scar tissue buildup in their liver, the worse the symptoms, the further on towards cirrhosis or liver failure they were. And in a study of 57 adults, they were placed on a low choline diet, less than 10% of the amount you would normally need. This was up to 6 weeks. Within just 6 weeks of being low in choline, they were developing problems with their liver, like liver dysfunction. So they added choline back into their diet, and the liver was restored to normal function. So the National Institute of Health talks about another study. These are patients on total parenteral nutrition. So they're getting tube fed. So, these people are not going into the refrigerator or into the grocery store and choosing their food. They're on specific foods. Now, all of these people on total parenteral nutrition, they had fatty liver disease. They had non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So they're on tube feeding. They have liver disease. They added a lot of choline to their tube feeding, 2,000 milligrams of choline a day, which is almost 4 times the recommended amount. And choline is extremely safe, by the way. It's very safe. I mean, what's the side effect of choline? Well, if you have a huge amount of choline, you might get like a fishy smell, a fishy odor, huge amounts, but that's a lot better than having a liver disease. And 2,000 milligrams will not cause a fishy odor, probably. Normally, they want you to have about 550 milligrams a day, but only 10% of Americans get 550 milligrams a day. And by the way, that's really important when you're pregnant. Lacking choline can lead to serious birth defects, so it's a really important nutrient. Sadly, it's not in a lot of prenatal vitamins. Can you imagine? I don't understand that. So let's get back to this. Group of adults, they're on tube feeding. They had fatty liver. They gave them choline. And it completely ameliorated, it completely resolved the fatty liver. But those not given the 2,000 milligrams of choline, they went on going just the way it was. They retained their fatty liver. Now, I mentioned that 90% of people who are morbidly obese have fatty liver, and 65% of people who are overweight. This is very common in diabetics also. And I can't give you the exact number because the problem is a lot of diabetics are really overweight. But if you look at normal weight diabetics, 20% of them have fatty liver. 20% of normal weight diabetics have fatty liver. So really important, you need to get choline into your life. You need it for your memory. You need it for your immune system. You need it for your heart. You need it for your muscles. You need it to help prevent cancer because it methylates your genes. You need it for your liver. I mean, you really need it for your liver. You really need it for your liver. So I want to thank you for listening to today's episode. Oh, and by the way, krill will ensure that you're getting choline, especially in the best form, that's really good for your liver and really good for your brain, called phosphatidylcholine. So krill, great source. Get a good krill. Get a nice, fresh, clean krill. I want to thank you for listening to today's episode. You can find all of our episodes wherever you listen to podcasts, and this is for free, or just go to invitehealth.com/podcast, and please subscribe and leave a review. You can also follow Invite on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Invite Health. I hope to see you next time on another episode of the Invite Health Podcast. This is Jerry Hickey signing off, and thank you so much for listening today.